Welcome to Overlooked Pearls, a show where I test out strange ideas nobody spends their time thinking about. Today's topic, Glacial Augment Ornn support. Most people play Ornn in the top lane as a big scary tank. His CC potential, tankiness, and damage make him a solid top laner. But all of these qualities are also pretty good for a support champion. He can initiate a fight similar to Leona. He can trap an enemy at mid-range, close the gap, and lock his target down. In terms of CC potential, Leona's CC activates a lot faster and is easier to land than Ornn's. But Ornn's advantage is his W skill. Instead of making himself tankier like Leona's W, he becomes CC immune, CCs people, and deals a sizable amount of damage. In simple terms, he is a more aggressive version of Leona. Tank supports share one similar problem. They are not tanky enough during early laning phase. Tanks need time and gold to itemize themselves with tank stats. That becomes a huge problem for supports, because supports gain the least XP and gold in the team, making tank supports in the early game more akin to squishy CC chain machines. So instead of going after Shock or Guardian in an attempt to patch up this weakness in the early game, we are fully committing to the CC chain role in the early game. Glacial Augment slows down the enemy, setting them up for more CC, and makes them deal less damage to your ADC, resulting in favorable trades and possibly early kills. Just like Leona on Nautilus, Ornn's entire kit is capable of activating Glacial Augment. Unfortunately, Glacial Augment does not scale off armor, MR, or HP, but that doesn't really matter, because this rune is taken mainly to help the early game. Comment down below your opinions on Glacial Augment. Do you think it should also scale with armor and MR? Personally, I think it should, because it encourages more rune diversity for tank supports in League of Legends. But that's just my opinion. Feel free to share yours. I think it's safe to say that not many people play Ornn, which is why I think it's worth taking the time to explain what Ornn does, which will also help you understand his strengths and weaknesses in the support role. Ornn's passive is Living Forge. Ornn gains more armor, MR, and health from all sources. He can purchase any non-consumable item from anywhere on the field. He upgrades his own mythic item at level 13 and allied mythics from level 14 and beyond. Ornn auto-attacking anything marked with the Brittle debuff will deal extra damage and knock them back slightly. Any immobilizing effects against Brittle enemies will last 30% longer and deal max HP damage as bonus magic damage. Now you may be wondering, what is the Brittle debuff? The Brittle debuff is applied by his W skill or ult, which I will now explain. Ornn's W skill, Bellows Breath, is his main damage ability. Ornn becomes unstoppable and moves forward a short distance, breathing fire in a cone in front of him, dealing target max HP damage. The final blast of fire will apply the Brittle debuff for 3 seconds. Since the W skill applies the Brittle debuff for 3 seconds, Ornn can then follow up by CCing the enemy or auto-attacking them for extra damage and CC. It is worth noting that auto-attacking enemies with the Brittle passive knocks them back, which can activate Glacial Augment. It does a surprising amount of damage and can be a finisher to a CC combo or to initiate a CC chain. Speaking of CC, Ornn's Q skill, Volcanic Rupture, is his main poking ability. Ornn slams the ground and creates a damaging line in a direction, dealing physical damage and slowing them by 40% for 2 seconds. A pillar pops up after 1 second at the end of the line, pushing enemies and staying as impassable terrain for 4 seconds. If enemies get popped up by the pillar at the end of the queue, it also activates Glacial Augment. It's kind of hard to do it though, so you won't be using that too often. Ornn's E skill, Searing Charge, is his engage tool. Ornn charges in a direction, dealing physical damage to enemies he passes through. He stops when colliding with terrain, knocking enemies up in an area and stunning them for 1.25 seconds. This move also destroys the pillar made by Ornn's Q ability and other champion-made terrain. This, along with his Q ability, is Ornn's bread and butter mid-range engage tool. Use Q to slow them down, use E 1 second after to immediately collide with the pillar from Q to knock up the target. This is literally a team-winning knockup. Landing this knockup on multiple people during a teamfight and proccing Glacial Augment swings the fight massively in your favor, and pretty much guarantees a W or any other skill shot hit. Ornn's ult, Call of the Forge God, is one of the strongest teamfight ults in this game. Ornn summons a giant ram to run towards him, applying the Britto debuff and slowing enemies down for 2 seconds. The slow effect depends on how much the ram has traveled. After 1.25 seconds of using this ability, Ornn can recast it to headbutt the ram to a target direction, knocking everyone up in its path, stunning them, as well as applying the Britto debuff. This is one of the strongest teamfight engagement tools in the history of League of Legends. The initial slow almost guarantees the following knockup and deals a good amount of damage. As you can see, Ornn has a lot of CC in his kit. This gives him plenty of opportunities to activate Glacial Augment. The Q pillar pop-up, E skill knockup, knockback from basic attacking and Britto enemy, and the knockup from your ult recast can all activate Glacial Augment. Now that you know what Ornn does, let's talk about runes. For runes, we will be taking Glacial Augment on the Inspiration Tree, Boots, Biscuits, and Approach Velocity. For secondary runes, I use Presence of Mind and Coup de Grace. It helps with early mana problems and finishing people off. The rest is up to your matchups and preference. For the build, I recommend Even Shroud. You're going to CC a lot of people, so it's worth making them more vulnerable to your team. It's also cheaper than Frostfire Gauntlet, and it gives a better mythic passive than Locket of the Iron Solari. It is always better to give yourself additional armor and MR on Ornn to fully benefit from his passive. Build it as soon as you can. Get Kindle Gem first for health regen, then buy Aegis for tank stats. Finish Even Shroud, then complete Boots. For boots, you have the option between Merc Treads and Armor Boots. Merc Treads for tenacity, Armor Boots for armor. For the rest, Ornn has a lot of options because we're mainly going for tank stats. For armor, build Thormail for anti-heal, Deadman's for movement speed. For MR, build Force of Nature. Buy Gargoyle's Stoneplate if you need both armor and MR plus a big ass shield. Randuin's and Frozen Heart are good options against assassins and ADCs. Warding Wardstone can be a final item if you're in need of control wards. Now that you have an idea of what Ornn can do, let's talk gameplay. At first level, you want to take either Q or W first. Q first if you're planning to poke them or they have a long range support. W first if you're expecting to get jumped or they have a melee support. Play passive during level 1. Aim to engage at level 2 or 3. But don't hesitate to take good trades if the enemy oversteps, even at level 1. If your ADC is an early game champ, engage at level 2. Take Q and then E for the level 2 engage. Otherwise, engage at level 3 because Ornn's full combo comes online at level 3. Some useful laning combos to know are as follows. Q, E, W, auto. This is your standard mid-range engage. Use Q to slow down and set up pillar. 1 second after using Q, E towards the enemy to immediately collide with the pillar and knock them up. W when they're in the air, and auto attack them when they fall down to extend CC time. You can try to weave in an auto before using W, but that gives the enemy some time to escape. W, Q, E, auto. This is the close range engage. Use W to apply Brittle first, then Q to slow them down and block their escape. Use E after 1 second to immediately collide with Q pillar to knock up. They'll stay knocked up for longer and take more damage from your E thanks to your Brittle passive. Do not be afraid to engage at level 3. Your W and Brittle does a lot of damage early game and activates Glacial Augment. You can easily chunk someone down with a full combo while keeping them locked down for your ADC. But do not overcommit. Ornn does not have an escape tool other than his E, and he is very thick and very slow. You also do not have the tankiness to survive a full-on assault, so be careful of your positioning. At mid-game, you now have access to your full ult combo and have probably built some tank items. If you have Even Shroud, you're doing good. If you don't have Even Shroud, then you're behind. If ahead, either roam or pressure lane. Thanks to Ornn's passive, he never has to recall unless he needs health, mana, or wards. This gives him more time to roam and to slowly stat check the enemy in lane. Ornn may not be the most mobile champion for roaming, but the amount of CC he has combined with Glacial Augment can help win a 2v2 fight in the jungle, or secure a kill mid. His W is also really good at taking Scuttle or killing dragons. If behind, sit in lane, defend tower, and scale for your life. As long as you keep scaling, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. If you've managed to make it to late game on Ornn support, congratulations, you've already won. Ornn is a monster in the late game. He becomes insanely tanky, deals a surprisingly large amount of damage for a tank, buffs everyone's stats with his forge item upgrades, and debuffs the enemy team with Glacial Augment. Initiating teamfights are now your full-time specialty, especially over objectives. Turrets, Baron Pit, and Dragon Pit are all close-range areas with terrain nearby for you to knock people up with. One good E is all it takes to win a teamfight. But don't forget to peel for your ADC. A W and auto can save your ADC, especially when it procs Glacial Augment, making them deal 15% less damage. Whew, that was a lot to talk about. Hot dang! An easy way to tell 1 second has passed is by looking at the cooldown timer for your Q. When 1 second ticks down, use E. Be careful of getting CC'd while using your ult. If you can't headbutt your ram, you'll lose the knockup from your ult and can lose you the team fight. Always be aware of the enemy's CC. Additionally, Yasuo's Wind Wall and Samira's Wind Wall ability can also block your ram, so be careful when fighting them. Poke supports and enchanters like Xerath and Janna will be very annoying for you due to their range advantage. Play safe and wait for a chance to engage. Your ideal matchups are tank supports like Leona or assassin supports like Pyke. You can deny their engage and outtrade them easily with your W skill and Brittle passive. To summarize, here are the pros and cons of Glacial Augment Ornn support. Pros: one of the best CCs in the game. Ornn has one of the longest AoE CC chains in League of Legends, making him very good at locking multiple targets down. One good combo is all it takes to get a double kill in the bot lane. 2. Very good against tank and assassin supports. Ornn's Brittle passive and W ability lets him do a large amount of damage close up, as well as denying CC effects. This lets him deny engages and win trades very consistently. If played properly, you can even counter engage with a Q and E combo. 3. Excellent at teamfights. Ornn's entire kit was made for winning teamfights. CC, damage, and tons of armor and MR stacking make him one of the most dangerous team-fighting tanks mid to late game. Glacial Augment debuff and his item upgrades gives his team comparatively more stats than the enemy team, in both offensive and defensive terms. Cons. 1. Scale slower than top lane Ornn. Due to the low gold and XP nature of the support role, Ornn takes a lot longer to become tanky and scale up. You'll immediately notice how much squishier support Ornn is versus top lane Ornn. The inspiration tree also does not have the tankiness provided by the resolve tree, further decreasing your tankiness in exchange for higher CC. 2. Suffers against poke supports and ranged enchanters. Ornn is a melee champion with no poking tools other than his Q, which is easily outranged by many poke supports. You can easily get lane bullied if not careful. 3. No immediate CC. Ornn does not have an ability that can immediately CC an enemy. All of his CC abilities require time to activate or a follow-up combo. This becomes a big problem when trying to lock down assassins like LeBlanc or Zed due to his lack of a point-and-click stun like Pantheon or Leona. Ornn's support is really satisfying to play. Baiting out the enemy's CC with your W, then counter-engaging makes Ornn a really fun support champ to play. Ornn is also a champion normally restricted to the Resolve rune tree, so being able to use a new rune like Glacial Augment on him feels extremely refreshing. I recommend you all to try it out at least once. That's it for today, folks. First of all, I'm really sorry for this long delay in uploads. There were technical issues with my OBS, making it really hard for me to get footage for my videos. Secondly, I've started my second semester in university, which means that there may be fewer uploads in the near future. I'll do my best to be as consistent as possible, but I may have to take some time off to focus on my studies. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and consider subscribing if you'd like to watch more. I'll catch you guys later. Good night and sweet dreams. Meme Cat, signing off. Alright.
How about no?
Oh no, he's outplayed me. Oh no, he's outplayed me.